Steve?
Yeah, he's not coming on tonight.
Okay.
Okay, I will call this meeting, May 27th, board workshop meeting to order. First, can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
of
United
the United
States
States of America
and to
and
the
to the
republic
republic
for
which it
stands
one nation under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
and
Justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Castle, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cunningham, not here. Dr. Drake,
Here.
Mr. Elliott,
present.
Mr. Hipser,
Present.
Mrs. Hofkin,
Here.
Mrs. McGinnis,
Here.
Mr. McCarrick,
Here.
Ms. Pennypacker,
Here.
Mrs. Cunningham.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd ask for a motion to approve the April 22nd board workshop minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, thanks, Dana. Any questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next, we'll move on to a motion to approve the following board policy revisions, adoptions, and repeals. First read, policy 818, contracted services for repeal and replace.
To approve.
I'll second that.
I think we're going to hear about it.
Right, this was an outgrowth of a recommendation from the most recent audit. Many of you heard about this recommendation, but primarily the focus was to add language around the clearance requirements for our contracted personnel. So you will see that in that attachment was highlighted that very specific language about clearances.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? That was a quick presentation. Any questions? I don't see any hands up. Do we need to move it forward? Sorry, Andrea.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I think Keith made a motion to approve. We have a second.
Second.
Thanks, Peg. We had no questions, so all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. All righty. Next, we'll have 2021-22 instructional model plans, in-person and virtual offerings. I'll turn it over to whoever's doing that. Nope, I think we lost Alan. There he comes. Thought you looked frozen.
Is it over to me?
Yes.
I guess the Ed Center is unstable.
Yeah.
Kenny and I are locking up here. So lots of fun. Sorry about that. Let me share my screen. I don't think I can beat that presentation timing wise, but I will try to keep it as succinct as possible. So as a follow-up from our presentation at our last meeting in terms of the survey, the questionnaire results in terms of anticipation for the 2021 school year, I wanted to share that over the past 2 weeks, we've done more work in that area. That's administratively. That's also working directly with teachers in the PEC meeting. We've met with UPEA representatives and had several conversations as we're moving forward. We don't have everything and every question and every scenario answered yet, but we are able to share our current planning, share that with the board tonight, and hopefully be prepared first thing tomorrow for our parent declaration statements to go out and then begin to collect the information ahead of prior to the next meeting for us to have a really good handle on what things look like as we're moving forward. And we continue to get information. As many of you know, we received additional, as it seems to be, I joke with Dr. Farina today, it's a Thursday, it's a board meeting, there's got to be something coming from the state, right? It has to happen around 10 or 11 o'clock so that we can be ill-prepared or challenging to reread things in preparation. So we are hearing today, we heard that as at the latest date would be June 28th, if not sooner, based upon how the vaccination piece goes. But as of June 28th, at the very latest, the entire mask mandate will be lifted, which is interesting for us as we've had conversations about ESY and summer programs and our staff and all of that. But that's information that came out today, as well as information about a health and safety plan that we need to resubmit to the state for next year by July 30th. Whether it has to be board approved or not prior to July 30th, I guess a question for Mr. Summers. But when they say the e-grant system or the system is open and we go there, it says coming soon, return in a future date. So we're still working on that. We will have a health and safety plan for next year, no doubt. We're hoping to not have to call a July meeting to get that approved. I was hoping that if we had to have that approved, that would be the August meeting as previously scheduled. But again, we'll work through that information as we're going through there. So we're aware of the information that came out today in terms of the mask order being lifted. And as we have and said in our health and safety plan, we will follow the guidance that is there. And then sometimes when there is discretion, we will weigh in and go from there. But I will say, as an unknown heading into the fall, if we are starting the summer with no masks anywhere, in essence, based upon that, that's all we can do is anticipate that's what the fall is going to look like. I do not believe there'll be a recommendation or maybe a motion, probably not from administration, to override that and go stronger than that. We would follow the guidance as that happens, and the information we're getting, although you can't predict the future, is that the fall should be very similar to the summer, and that we may see things in October, November, December as things kick back up. But our plan is to be as back to quote unquote normal as we can come the fall. So we will try to communicate that. But the fact that now we have a date, which is roughly a month out, that the masking order will be lifted for the summer and the beginning of school, we will follow that as such and hopefully share some of those details in this presentation for you right now. And I apologize because the first slide was longer than the last presentation already. So I want to quickly recap just the most important slide from the last presentation in terms of the percentage of folks that, percentage of parents that responded in terms of the 5-day in-person or full in-person. Ironically, I think our calendar has a couple 4-day weeks to start the year, so we'll try to say full in-person. I think you know what that intention is well over 90%. So I think as I was quoted in one of the local papers, that we have our marching order, so to speak, in terms of what the needs are, and it definitely helps us plan accordingly to not have to worry about so many different models moving forward. Again, this is a repeat slide, and you can see we're right in the middle on that green across the middle, where we are continuing to do what we set out with a schedule, and going to follow this up. You will see this slide again as the next piece down is where we're set for hopefully tomorrow, barring any major questions or direction from the board here, to start the declaration process, which I know is going to be too soon for some, but it's probably not soon enough for our principals and our administrators that want to plan and really do the best we can for a smooth and successful start to the school year. So instructional model options. Before I get to that, I want to make a couple statements that I want to, as we're planning this, and make it clear that, and I won't read everything, but it's that first one there, is that we do believe that in-person instruction is the best, and we want to make sure that we are providing that and doing and meeting our students' needs, and that is the way schools have been structured for obviously as long as we know, and we do believe that is the best way to carry that out. We also believe that that we can provide that learning environment and encourage our students in growth in the face-to-face as well as in a virtual model, but we're still standing behind that. Ideally, we would have 100% of our students back in person and be able to support them with all the resources at the ready in every situation. And we also recognize and believe that we know that there is some unfinished learning, some unrealized potential based upon the last 16 months, and it has put some students and families at a disadvantage, as well as it has still a lot of questions heading into the fall. So we're looking ahead at next year as another type of transition year, more so on the full in person. But we are recognizing that we may have some students and some families that are still unsure, which is why you will see virtual options here heading into next year. And the options that we're going to discuss tonight are ones that we do feel we can carry out with fidelity to the best that we can, and not an overreach at this time. But a lot of that is going to depend upon the survey, the declaration results on how that will play out. But at this point, planning purposes, this is what we feel we can do. And as the last bullet point there says, the last arrow talks about, moving forward, we have at the high school level, there's always been that virtual option, and that will continue. But the ultimate goal will be to come back 100% in 22-23. Again, this year we'll still be above 90%, as you've just seen. We're expecting those type of results, and we're hopefully expecting and would welcome that 4, 5, 6% that were undecided, that they will decide and return, as well as some of the students that had other choices and families that had other choices during that first part of the pandemic, that they will return as well, and we'll be able to support them in every way possible. So that's the ultimate kind of belief statement moving forward. So the model for K-5, as we said last time, no surprises here except a little tweak to that the UPOLA for elementary. That kindergarten, we are saying we're not going to have a virtual option, that we would like everyone to be in person as the commitment to full day kindergarten, and have that in person face-to-face. For grades 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, obviously, hopefully the 90+% is the face-to-face option. Then we will have an Upper Perk Online Learning Academy. This may look a little different based upon the numbers and the numbers that will return there. What we're able to propose at this point is at least a half day of live virtual instruction with a teacher. If we may have to have a teacher that carries over 2 grade levels, first and second, or second and third, or some sort of combination there. So the other part of the day, again, it may be more than a half day, but at least a half day. The other part of the day would be for some of the asynchronous work, whether it's on digital content or working with another teacher that'll be a connections coordinator or someone helping out in that area. But that is an option for people that are not quite prepared or ready or supporting the in-person face-to-face. We did learn this year that, again, this model will have live as well as synchronous and asynchronous instruction or non-live opportunities, but we also have expectations of students being on screen like we are right now. We hear a lot about people tilting their screen so they're really not on the screen, and that hurts with engagement. So we want to make sure that there are expectations, and we do have, we continue to utilize Zoom, being actively responding if there's questions, if there's participation. All of that is definitely a ramp up. So we saw a ramp up from March to June the first year, then on this year, and this is another ramp up to continue to engage and learn from there. And then there will be an undecided choice at this time, and we're going to have someone, the principal or someone, reach out to see if we can answer questions and get to that, because eventually we're going to need to have a statement. We are seeing other school districts that are saying we're going to make a forced choice for you and then have you opt out of this or that. I think this is the approach that we felt will be most successful, where you're giving everyone that option, or that we needed you to declare. If you don't declare, or you're undecided for a longer period of time, we're going to have to begin to plan for you, most likely in person, and then go from there. But at some point, we're going to have to make those decisions moving forward. So that's the elementary 1 through 5 model there. And like was shared last time, 6 through 12, again, the in-person face-to-face, full face-to-face, and then the UPOLA. But this is definitely an asynchronous model. So these are asynchronous courses supported by a PA certified teacher. In some cases, they may be supported by an Upper Perk teacher, but we can't guarantee that until we see the numbers and really understand what the requests are for students that are in this environment. And those are typically semester courses based upon the online content. And then again, an undecided option at this point, if you're not quite sure, based upon the questions that are there. So again, I'm sure there's no surprises here from what was presented, but we definitely worked hard to get some feedback. We have lots of questions still remaining that we need to answer on. If there's quarantine in the fall, what will that look like for students in a live synchronous environment or an asynchronous environment? We don't even know what quarantine will look like in 3 months based upon the numbers. But as Dr. Farina shared, and I think we did put it back in the slide here in the show today, it is a part. I mean, COVID-19 is no different than any of the other public school code quarantine issues that are there. So there's still challenges that are with us. I think I turn it over here to Dr. Farina for a couple slides.
Thanks. So as was the case at the beginning of this year, conjoined with any parent declaration is also the consideration of transportation. And everyone full well knows that transportation has been one of those issues that has been up in the air, and we've relied heavily on parents to indicate to the district what their preference is. That will be no different in this declaration. So when we send that out to parents, we are going to ask them what their transportation request for this year is. The options are displayed on the screen, and there are many, many iterations. We also acknowledge that some parents at this point may not be able to decide based on their comfort level around, what the atmosphere and what the environment is like related to COVID. But this will be part of that decision-making and declaration that we will be sending out to families, so they can anticipate that. As Dr. Roach indicated, there's a lot of additional information and a lot of additional inquiry that we've heard from families. One of those questions is often, what happens if I choose this and I want to change to this? And we're cognizant that families may be in that situation. So, the team preliminarily identified the transition between models. We work and function in trimesters at the elementary level. And so we really were looking to recommend natural breaks. And so for our elementary students 1st through 5th, we are going to recommend any transition occur at a trimester, which would be around December or mid-March. For our secondary students, we would permit that at the semester break, which falls around January of 2022. Dr. Roach indicated we are required to submit another health and safety plan. I refresh my PDE screen multiple times a day to see if there's a new template that I can begin to plan for the board and for the community. Not yet. So we will be working on that. As he also indicated, we are going to follow, as we have since March of 2020, the recommendations of the PA Department of Health and the Montgomery County Office of Public Health. Face coverings are up in the air. We got that news today. So, we will adhere to that recommendation. I also get a lot of inquiry around the requirement for vaccinations. At this point, there is no indication that will be mandatory for vaccine eligible age groups. But that may change over time. COVID-19 is now indicated in public health code as a communicable disease. And so we may see that come to fruition sometime in the future. That is not something that we have at the present moment. Other questions that we field are often around our antigen testing program. Symptomatic student testing is something that has worked very nicely for our families at no cost. And so, we really don't know what that's going to look like. It will be precipitated based on, what our requirements for testing out of quarantine may look like. There is at this point no recommendation for testing for athletics. And as always is the case for any school district, we are required to follow public health code. There are requirements for us to continue to identify, to report, and to quarantine individuals who have COVID-19, as well as many other, I believe it's 72 other communicable diseases. And so we will do that. We are still working around what those timelines might be. If that changes from what our current practice is based on Montgomery County, we obviously will comply with their recommendation for how long students must quarantine as a close contact and or a positive case of COVID-19. So those are some intangibles at this moment, and we recognize that. But please, we want to communicate, we will be required to quarantine. And so that is a particular nuance we're working out. Some of the other information that is really important for our community and the board members to know, that we may not at the elementary, based on enrollment, be able to have a building specific UPOLA program. So it may be a district-wide grade level UPOLA program. The enrollment is obviously going to dictate that. So when we get those declarations back, we'll be able to see what we're able to offer per grade level. In some instances, we may have the combined grade levels in order, to offer them a complete program. Once the schedule is established, there may not be the flexibility that once was in the AM or PM live instruction or their time to virtually meet. So those are some of the limitations and some of the factors we need to take into consideration based on parent declaration response.
Dr. Farina, real quick, I don't want the third bullet there about combining. That's not combining for first and second grade for math. It's
No.
I just want to clarify that. I want people walking away saying that we're simply combining for the whole day or anything like that.
No.
We're just trying to get creative in thought process here about morning meetings or some specials or other things to combine if you're on one teacher's roster and they happen to have that thing. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. Yes, no, everyone listening.
That's not the plan.
We're not doing multi-age classes. I know that was a thing once, but that's not what we're recommending. For our secondary UPOLA, as Dr. Roach indicated, this is asynchronous. There was an asynchronous virtual program many, many years ago. I know many of the board members were sitting on this board or in the audience when we started our virtual program. So it will look similar to that in all likelihood. That was prior to the pandemic. We have never stretched it down into middle school, and obviously we would at this point. It is not the same as the current model for virtual instruction where we have kids zooming in to the teacher-led classroom instruction. So we want to be very transparent about that right now, that it is not what we have currently. Teachers of asynchronous courses most likely will not be UPSD, but they will be PA certified as required. Students will have full access. If they choose the UPOLA secondary program, they will have full access to all school activities, sports, theater, music, our counselors, our mental health supports. There will be no limitation or denial of their access to those features of the Upper Perkiomen School District. So we want to, rest families at ease that those things are still available to children should they choose this option. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Roach to summarize the timeline.
Thank you. So as was shared, this is the same slide from previous that we are in the green there. We're presenting the information to you tonight, kind of thumbs up. And our plan is at some point tomorrow, whether it's through the Friday blast or another communication that goes out, as well as multiple communications over the course of the next couple of weeks. I promise board it's not as communications as I send to you in a day, but that there will be communications out about filling out the declaration by the 11th is when we would like that closed, and then we'd be able to begin quickly in terms of getting some of those answers that are based upon enrollment or following up with families, answering questions, and going from there. And then again, we'll continue to work on the program through the summer, collect feedback from administrators, teachers, staff as we plan. And I'm not sure. I'll look to Mr. Summers here, if we need official board approval of what the instructional model will be. That's not done every year, but or if that's something that, again, I think it helps to have it approved. That way we have our direction and we're not necessarily off on a tangent based upon that. But this seems, I guess, pretty clear to me where we're headed. But if we need to have board approval, we'll definitely can do that on the 17th, unless there's other questions. So that's, I think, somewhere things summarize up. Again, Kyle, I'm not sure. Do we need to have board approval for that type of model for next year?
Well, we'll likely need board approval with regard to submitting the time template to PDE to indicate that we will have students receiving virtual instruction. So by approving that, in essence, the board will be indicating the model that school will be open every day, full time for students, but that we will also be offering a virtual option for students who choose that particular model.
Okay. So that would be, we could do that as early as, we could do that on the 17th in terms of that time template piece. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, again, we're still waiting on direction on the health and safety plan of what that will look like. But that'll be, that's they're saying July 30th. And I didn't see anything yet about board approval. I'm sure it should be at some point, but if it has to be prior to PDE, I'm not sure if they looked at our last one. But prior to that, ahead of the August 12th meeting. So that kind of brings us to our questions area, the end of this presentation for the board, to see if there's any specific questions that you may have or how we can, our plan is to move forward. I think we've got a couple touch-ups and we're ready to go tomorrow with the declaration. And again, I think we know it's going to be maybe a little soon for some, but I think we're going to do our best to ask them to make their best choice so planning can begin.
Questions, anybody? Thank you both for the nice presentation, even if it was longer than Andrea's. Any questions? Go ahead, Judy.
I just had a quick one. I know when we did the survey, you tried to reach out to some of our families that left to go to parochial school or private schools. Are we going to try that again with the declaration? And
yes,
maybe get more than 13% of them to respond?
Yes, they would not get a declaration because the declaration is for our current students, so it would go skyward. So that would actually be a re-enrollment, but I think we will have a push and a, for lack of a better term, campaign to reach out and share the information, share the presentation that's here, explain to them how easy it is to re-register and how you get to interact with Cookie at the front desk, and she'll make it as smooth as possible for us to do that, help answer questions. We've talked about having an information opportunity or even a Zoom to help answer questions for anyone that's not quite sure, or if they're, on the fence and want to hear something from one of us, hear something from one of our principals. I think we're happy to do that. That will go on all summer long in terms of that. I think, we're going to continue to welcome the students back, and hopefully positive word of mouth. If there are people that are concerned about masks, or they're concerned about busing or whatever else it is, it'll be cleared up as we get closer to that point to help answer those questions. I think we have so much to offer, and our staff has gone above and beyond in so many ways that I think it would be, if you're on the fence, we'd love to have everyone back and be a part of the kind of the reopening aspect of the district moving forward, as well as the cool new playground at Marlboro, and utilizing the middle school and all the great stuff that's going on.
Yep. Agreed. Anyone else have any questions?
Yes. I'd like to just say now that, I'd like the health and safety plan to be as least restrictive as possible, find ways for us to get the kids there with the most freedom they can have. Also, in regards to antigen testing, I hope that it's not required for anything next year. Let it be optional if possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much again. And we're going to move on to the 2021-2022 update from the Finance Committee meeting on the 2021-22 budget discussions. And Sandy. And I think you're muted. I can't see you, but I think you're muted. Just about the time you retire, you're going to get the whole hang of this mute thing.
Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm just bringing an update on the 21-22 budget. Let's see. All right. I think that was odd. Sorry. The meeting. Okay. So since the last meeting, we did do a finance meeting to talk about the current year, and I'm sure Melanie will report on that. But and we also said during that meeting that we would continuously update the budget with possible changes that are occurring, and continue and some board direction and administrators to try to reduce the total budget to reduce the impact on the fund balance. So I just want to go over the timeline. So right now, the PDE 2028 is available on the website. The due date to make it that it had to be available is tomorrow, but it's on the website currently, and there's a copy in the Ed Center lobby. And then our public notice is going in the newspaper next week. It has to be in 10 days prior to the board, to the final budget adoption. The final budget adoption is scheduled for 6/17, but must be done by the 30th of June. So I just want to go over those dates. Expenditure adjustments since we last looked at the budget. As Alan indicated previously, we've had not a large response on the charter school end, but we did have individuals indicate they'd be returning to the district, at least some. So I reduced the amount of the expense that's in the budget by $183,000. We also received our RFP for security, school security guard contracting. And so we're reducing that section of the budget by $62,000 because of the cost that came in. So right now there's a decrease in the preliminary budget of $245,000. And this is the area, this is the major functions: instruction, support services, non-instructional, and other. And so the red is where those deductions are occurring. So now we're down to a grand total of 70,186,632. This is just graphically showing that adjustment in the expenditures. Obviously, most of them will be in instruction and support services. Then revenue. So the key here is the local, state, and federal have not changed. There still is not a state budget, as you probably know. So I really don't know what our state subsidies, what our state subsidies will be for basic instruction and special ed. But that amount did reduce the need for the fund balance to 3.5 million at the 2% millage increase level. Again, here it is graphically just to see that change. Obviously, local is being the largest supporter and state funds of the budget. This is just showing, I wanted to show you this because I updated the median and average assessments that came from the county right before our last meeting, so I was able to update them. I have in blue what the district has approved. And as you know, from the preliminary budget to the final budget, the board has the leeway to go from 0 to the index. The decision at this point is 2% in the preliminary budget. So I'm just showing the 0, 1, and 2 with the fund balance needed at this point, even with 2% of 3.5 million. As you can see, that additional tax generated, we've had multiple discussions and reviewed the cost of full day K, the additional support for autistic as we add classes. And basically that 2% will just cover those two areas, not counting any other increases in the budget. And that's it. Made it short. So open any questions. Remember we do have a finance meeting on June 14th to make any additional changes. If the board has suggestions or, gives some direction as far as the level of fund balance that is to be utilized to support the budget, just please convey that to us and we'll look further. We'll continue to look at any way we can reduce the expenditures. And then hope we get in some final or at least some proposed subsidy numbers that will help support the budget moving forward.
Is there a particular time that we'll know that? I guess we won't until they pass a budget.
We won't. I'm not expecting very much for our district. Even the estimates were not very, there wasn't a lot of revenue that would be coming into Upper Perk. Well, I did budget some additional special ed because they did have some proposed increases there. But there was one year we didn't have a budget till December. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect that at all. I would assume we'll have one by the end of June, but I don't know. I haven't really heard anything.
Okay.
Tina, I was at the MCIU meeting last night and Tina was on the Hill. You all know, well, maybe not all, but most of you probably have met Tina before. She's the IU's legislative director. She spends a lot of time in Harrisburg. She said she was on the Hill, or whatever you call it when you go to Harrisburg, on Monday. And they do believe that a budget will be coming shortly. That's what the legislatures are telling them. They're keeping it very tight-lipped, so she couldn't really get much out of them, but I guess they are getting very close to passing one. So that's good news. So it sounds like we will definitely have that information before our next meeting. So keep fingers crossed.
Yep. That would be great. And Judy, I have to agree, they've been very tight-lipped. We're not hearing anything.
That's what Tina said. Yeah, you know her, she knows everybody, and she couldn't get information out of anyone up there. They all just kept saying, yep, it's pretty much ready to go. That was it. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Sandy? No, I don't see any hands going up. All right, well, everyone tune into the next Finance Committee meeting then on the 14th. And we should be as up to date as we can be. Hopefully with the state numbers by then, maybe. Okay, we'll have no more questions on that. We'll have public comments on action items. Do we have any public comments?
We did not.
Okay, and then we'll move on to the personnel section.
Make a motion to approve the personnel section as presented.
Second.
Okay, any questions?
I have a
Comments?
question.
Go
I have a
ahead.
question. Who's going to keep Rob in line now that Mrs. Newman is retiring?
Yeah, I was wondering that.
She's how long has she been working over there? Anybody know?
I had a feeling you might ask. It's 25 years and 7 months.
Wow. That's awesome. Yep, that's awesome.
I have a question for Mr. Summers. Do
Go ahead.
you abstain on this motion? I should explain. My daughter is one of the paraprofessionals approved tonight.
I would recommend that you abstain then.
Okay.
And the rationale, you do have to provide an explanation, and you've just provided that your child is one of the candidates recommended for the appointment. So I would suggest abstaining.
That's what I figured. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, having no one else, we're going to approve the whole personnel report. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? And Judy will be happy to have Lauren.
One abstention.
Yep, thank you. All right,
Mrs. Cunningham,
yep, go ahead.
I forgot to mention the mentorship was recommended out of the curriculum committee, so we give the report later, but that was recommended as one of the actions coming out of the curriculum meeting to support that.
Yep, I was there. I was
It
there.
looked like it needed to help to support it, but just wanted to add that point.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to action items. First one
I
is.
make a motion
Oh,
to do
you're
action
good.
item A to appoint Dan DeResso as the business manager.
Second.
Any discussion? No?
I'll just say real quick, I'm excited to have Dan, grow with the district and grow into this role. Excited to see what he'll bring to the table. Dan's been a nice part of the district and really grown with us since he's been around for a couple of years now. So it's nice to see. So I'm fully in favor of this motion tonight.
Me too. Me too. It'd be nice. All right, anyone else? Comments?
No, I just agree with Mike. We've been working with Dan for a long time, and he does some nice spreadsheets, and so I'll look forward to seeing the output when he's steering the budget ship.
Yep. Yep. Okay. If there's no more comments, I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Dan, welcome aboard, or more aboard. Thank you. All right. So next, we'd like a motion to approve the declaration from the Upper Percumen School Board of Directors to the class of 21 graduates, and I'd like to read that. Hang on, I get to read it this time.
I thought you'd read it after we make the motion.
Oh, all right, well, go ahead. We can do that.
I'd like to make the motion since my son's one of the
And I'd
graduates.
like to second it.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll remove myself. You two take
That
credit.
makes- that makes
Okay.
good sense. Okay, and the proclamation is, whereas the Board of Directors of the Upper Percumen School District of Montgomery County in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania takes great pleasure in acknowledging notable achievements of young adults in the community. And whereas the Board of Directors wish to applaud the Upper Percumen School District graduating high school senior class of 2021, whereas graduation is an exciting time, it marks both an ending and a beginning. It evokes warm memories of the past and big dreams for the future. And whereas today is a milestone, it tells you how far you've come. In the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Whereas the Board of Directors declares June 10th, 2021, a celebratory day for all the graduating seniors of Upper Percumen School District. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of Directors of the Upper Percumen School District offer our warmest congratulations on your upcoming graduation, proclaimed this 27th day of May, 2021. Thank you. So all in favor of proclaiming June 10th a celebratory day, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hope not. Okay, approved. The proclamation is approved. You're ready. Next, we will, I'd like to entertain a motion, excuse me, to approve the waiver of formal hearing agreements for 2 students whose names are on file in the office of the superintendent.
President, can I make a motion to approve C, basically the rest of the action items, C through J, which is the
Second.
waiver of the hearings. Approved
Okay.
Dan Duresco as secretary for the board. Motion to approve the election of Steve Cunningham as treasurer. Approve the contract for teaching, learning, and succeeding. The title change for Ms. Gibbons. Motion to approve the resolution agreement with Berkheimer, the 3-year contract extension with Christmas Studio, and the post-development traffic survey.
That sounds like a plan. Any discussion?
I had a question on the
Sure.
traffic study. So
Yeah.
if I recall correctly, they did the initial traffic study for the middle school.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Were they accurate in their predictions of the traffic?
Well, it was proposed, yes, they were at this point. They don't believe that there's a need for 8th and Montgomery, but it had to be annualized, whatever. And I should have the results in another week or so on the most recent engagement of the traffic study.
Okay.
And Carrie, just to further on that, this is
Mhm.
part of our final land development agreement. It's one of the conditions that were set by Upper Hanover.
Yeah.
Sure. I was just curious, though. I thought that we had a lot of traffic issues and they needed to be addressed.
I guess we're going to find out.
Okay.
That's what they're analyzing. We obviously have more cars because we encouraged people to drive during the COVID.
Oh, well,
time period.
that's understandable. But I think we had the problem before before the COVID, didn't we? Like when we first opened the middle school, there was a lot of traffic snarls.
There was in front of the entrance for the parent entrance. We've done a nice job, or with a lot of volunteers in front of the area now that has really moved traffic along. I would say to you, it's probably about a 20-minute time period where there's, a decent flow of traffic, but it's been flowing very well with the controls that we've put in place. So we'll see what the study comes out, because they do it over a like an 8-hour period, and then 11 hours for a certain area. So we should have those results shortly. But one of the determinations was whether the traffic light would be needed at 8th and Montgomery, and whether timing in the other lights on Main Street might be needed to help move traffic along. So the other items that were originally identified when the building was going to open was 3-way stops at 8th and Montgomery, and then a 4-way stop on 11th and Montgomery. Those were implemented immediately as before the building was even open. So right now it's more of, is a traffic light needed, and does timing have to be changed at the traffic lights that are above at 8th Street and 11th Street. So we will find out from the study.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is they recommended some changes and we implemented, and then this is an evaluation to see if we need any more, like a traffic light.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, then that answers my question.
Okay, Mike, I see you turned your microphone on. Go ahead.
So have these, and these guys do a lot of work for us, very nice experiences with all of them, but I'm just asking the question, like, do they have a lot of experience doing traffic studies?
Yes, they actually have their own, I would say, division or certain specialists that work in that area. Yes.
Okay, and it's not like a new thing, it's something that's been going on for a while, they've been working on?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to have a vote on letters C through J. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motions are approved. And that does it for our action items. We'll move on to committee reports. So I will turn it over to Judy for special ed and pupil services update. And you're muted. Yeah. Trying to catch you quick.
Thank you very much for doing that. I think by now I'd have this down. So the Special Education and Pupil Services Committee met on Monday, May 24th. The meeting began with a presentation on a proposed new program called Pathway to Graduation, which you will often see as we go along, it referred to as P2G. This is funded through a grant. It's a 3-year program, which would start beginning with the 2021-2022 school year. The goal of the program is to reduce the risk factors associated with increased dropout rates, targeting interventions to at-risk students during the middle school years. Carol Giblin and Dr. Farina mentioned that most of the evidence shows that students who drop out have usually made the decision to do so prior to even entering high school, which is the reason that these interventions are going to be targeted to the middle school. We'll be working in collaboration with the MCIU and Patton. Staff will receive professional development to help the district establish and sustain an early warning system to identify at-risk students. The program would utilize data analysis to address both system-wide and individual barriers to school completion. The program will provide resources to address factors and concerns related to graduation success, and training to our staff on evidence-based interventions to improve student engagement, behaviors, and meet mental health needs. And the Special Education and Pupil Services Committee does fully support this program. I'm going to stop here and see if anybody has any questions about this, because then I'm going to talk about another program as well.
No questions, but it sounds like a really great program, and it's a grant. It's awesome.
And this is right up, of course, Dr. Farina's alley. This is something she's very passionate about. So we are glad that she's going to be involved with this program. And the IU and Patan also are going to be a great resource. So, so if no questions about that, the other thing that occurred during the meeting was we were joined by a special guest, Dr. Brittany Zazeski, I hope I'm saying it correctly. She's from the Devereaux Center for Effective Schools. And along with her, we had our curriculum supervisor, Sarah Rothermel, provide a presentation and a discussion on a proposed addition to the social and emotional learning curriculum at the elementary level. Dr. Zazeski is the developer of ComCat, which is a tier 2 SEL intervention with an elementary focus. As you hopefully recall, last year we initiated Second Step program at our elementary school, and Second Step is a research-based program of curriculum that's designed to promote social emotional development, safety, and well-being of all students. So therefore, it's a tier 1 SEL intervention. So utilizing a lot of common language that our students are familiar with from the Second Steps curriculum. ComCat is a tier 2 intervention that'll combine targeted skills training with staff mentoring for identified at-risk students. These would be students that are exhibiting some signs of anxiety, depression, and somatic disorders. The professional development will be targeted to key staff members who will then provide these tier 2 interventions to the at-risk students. So all students get Second Step as a tier 1 intervention, and then the at-risk students would receive these tier 2 interventions. It should be noted, Dr. Zazeski is conducting a research study in conjunction with this program to evaluate its effectiveness. Parents will be asked for consent to participate in the study. If a parent chooses not to participate in the study, that's fine. Their student will still receive the needed tier 2 interventions, including the skills training and the mentoring with a staff member. They just won't participate in the evaluation activities. So, as you know, we have had in the past teachers, especially at the elementary level, request more classroom tools and clearer direction regarding SEL interventions related to the MTSS process. So this is a great opportunity to meet the needs both of for them as the staff and as the students. So the Special Ed and Pupil Services Committee does support this initiative. Many questions on that one? Don't see any.
Another great program.
Yeah, this one sounds really good. I think, like I said, it's going to benefit not just the students who need it, but our teachers who have really, wanted more concrete interventions for SEL. So I think this is going to be great, and we appreciate all the work that went into getting this program into our school district, assuming, of course, that the board approves. If there's no other questions, that does complete my report. The Special Ed Pupil Services Committee will not meet again now until September. So thank you.
Thanks, Judy. We'll move on to curriculum and instruction with Carrie.
Thank you, Madam President. So we actually had 2 meetings since the last workshop, April 26th, I believe, and then just this past Monday, May 24th. Topics were very similar on both, updates on the instructional model and then summer programs. So the instructional model, we just heard a lot about, so I'm not going to go into more detail on that. But as you know, we are looking at summer programs for to try to assess and then potentially address any kind of shortfalls in learning because of the pandemic and the disruptive educational model. So we are still having those programs, as we just mentioned, but turnout hasn't been as high as hoped or expected. So just for everybody to know, that program is still available, and please consider it if your students are eligible for it. We also talked about curriculum in April, and again, we approved that in the board meeting in May. The mentors program we just discussed as well. And so I think that covers pretty much all of the main agenda items that we had discussed in the curriculum meetings in both months. Any questions? Okay, that concludes my report.
Thanks, Carrie. We'll move on to extracurricular with Peg.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. The Extracurricular Committee met on May 20th at 6 p.m. The invited guests for the meeting were Mrs. Monica Griffith, High School Yearbook Advisor, Mr. Bobby Kurzweg, District Athletic Director, and Mrs. Georgie Fisher, Director of Human Resources and District Title IX Coordinator. Mrs. Griffith shared an overview of the high school yearbook process. Due to the pandemic, the yearbook staff followed a new and different process than the last 13 years. The goal is to provide a great yearbook for the students and to make sure the virtual students feel a part of the yearbook process. The yearbook will be delivered later than usual, with a possible delivery date in mid to late July. Typically, there are 4 deadlines: winter break, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, and the end of March. There are usually 40 pages in each deadline for a complete yearbook of approximately 160 pages. In the past, the staff would assist with taking pictures and capturing school moments during the year. However, that has been a challenge in the virtual and hybrid world. The cover of the 2020-2021 high school yearbook was shared as well. There were lots of different themes that were discussed, but the title of this year's yearbook is From a Distance, as this reflects some of the experiences that the students had over the past year and a half. Mr. Kurzweg, District Athletic Director, and Mrs. Fisher, District Director of Human Resources and Title IX Coordinator, shared a PowerPoint that gave an overview of where the district is relative to the OCR's, Office for Civil Rights, investigation regarding allegations of Title IX disparities in the district's athletics program. The OCR, through the Department of Education, is the enforcement arm of Title IX and several other civil rights laws affecting educational institutions. Mr. Kurzweg discussed the areas of policy and assessment, accommodation of athletics interests and abilities, as put forth by the resolution agreement between the district and the OCR. In addition, Mr. Kurzweg shared information on the recent athletics participation survey that was issued to current 8th through 11th grade students and discussed actions to increase participation opportunities for female students. Mrs. Fisher shared information regarding scheduling of games and practice times, training for coaches and documentation for schedule changes, availability, assignment, and compensation of coaches, locker rooms, practice and competition facilities, and publicity related to Title IX compliance. The goal is to have a complete equity self-assessment resubmitted to the OCR by the end of June of this year. Next steps also include exploring the addition of girls' athletic teams, facility upgrades to the softball field, and other improvements. A site visit is planned with the district solicitor in early June, and pictures will be taken and submitted to the OCR for review. The next extracurricular committee meeting is scheduled for September 16th at 6 p.m. The committee members will continue to identify extracurricular programs throughout the district in each school. The committee looks forward to continuing meeting with groups and celebrating the successes and importance of all school district extracurricular activities. This concludes the extracurricular committee report.
Any questions? It's really a fun committee if you tune in because it's always something different. I enjoy that one. Thanks, Peg. I will move to myself for Facilities Committee. We met on May 10th and again on May 20th. May 10th was our last discussion on full day K, and we talked about the phase 1B of the Giza project. The May 20th meeting, we went over where we are with the Giza project, working on the roof at Marlboro and figuring out where the leak is. So we'll have a lot to go with phase 1B. And let's see, it's just going to be a big project. So we're still trying to get all of it together. We talked about the Montco class system, which is the so-called panic buttons at the schools. Montgomery County had all these years a program that we used that was free to us, and now they're not doing that anymore. So we're working on a different company, and that's ongoing right now. That's ongoing. So I believe we have until the end of the year. We talked about the outdoor basketball courts and just talking about whether, you know, we could maybe fix the nets and the court surface. Maybe there was some suggestions as to companies we could use, or maybe we could find a nice community partner that would help us fix that. Middle school maintenance, we had things that we had to finish up, such as the dead trees we had to replace, dead foliage at the middle school, this crack ceiling and on Montgomery Avenue and Walt Road, which are now done. And we talked about the safety, the traffic study. We are getting ready. We needed to reseed, so we need 6 to 8 weeks for inspection. So everybody bring their watering cans, although I think it got a really good watering yesterday. We talked about the high school roofing survey, and there's different parts to different places on the roof, and whether we're working on whether there are warranties for different parts of the roof and how to extend them, or do we need recoating on some? There's a lot of different areas. We're waiting for a report on that. And well, I won't bother telling you about the security guards because I see we took that off the budget, so I won't worry about that. And an RFP went out for the trash and recycling is due tomorrow. And also an RFP for the mowing at the district. And we did get someone to do the mowing between now and the end of June, which is good. It looks a lot better out there. And let's see. And we talked about policy 707 just briefly. So anyone have any questions? Oh, go ahead, Alan.
I just want to clarify that we didn't remove the security. When what happened was we had the RFPs come back for the security guards, and it was less than what was budgeted. So it wasn't removed. It just happened to be roughly 60,000 less than what was initially budgeted. So it's still in the mix in terms of that discussion. It's just we want to reflect the accurate numbers from the RFP that came in. So we're moving forward in that process.
That was too long ago. Now I forgot.
Yeah. Yep. And if I could say one thing at the end there, you mentioned policy 707. I was at facilities to know that it was discussed. I probably should have said something offline, but I think that policy 707 that was discussed in policy, at the end of facilities, it was like, let's talk about policy 707 here as well. I'm just concerned that we should really keep it in policy. That's my opinion, that way those discussions are happening there. If there's a discussion about facilities in terms of what something costs, or, you know, the maintenance or something that would naturally fall there. But I just don't want people that want to pay attention to the conversation to have a whole conversation in one committee when they didn't know it was going to be there or want to attend both meetings. So I would just caution, I know it's going to be a long process and a good, healthy discussion to get that. But I also want to respect the folks that are going to be spending time and coming to policy because they are passionate about it and want to weigh in and not miss a conversation that they didn't know was taking place. So my recommendation is, let's keep the policy actual conversation in policy, or if we're going to have the conversation continue in facilities, let's make sure people know that if that's what's going to happen, that way we can get there. But I think there's still some pieces of facilities that may need to be discussed there as well. But anyway, just my 2 cents in terms of just keeping that on the right track would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay,
I did have a question on the mowing.
sure.
Will that mowing include, there's like, I don't know, 100 feet at the end of the middle school that doesn't get mowed? Will the new quote include that little piece of mowing? I don't know if it's on someone else's property and they don't mow it. I
Yeah,
know Sandy says we don't.
no, we don't. That's not our property. So we don't maintain it.
Could we try to? I mean, everything looks beautiful except that one patch.
Well, I think it would be a liability issue if something
Oh,
occurred.
okay.
That's why we're not taking or going beyond our own property.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
Any other questions? I don't see any, so we'll move on to finance, which is also my committee. So we had a meeting May 3rd and we had a meeting May 17th. I don't have a lot to add to the latest and greatest from Sandy yet. You know, we're hoping that I know I'm hoping that the kids from the charter and the cyber schools come back. That's a gigantic chunk. It's about $1.5 million. And that would be great if they came back. And I don't know if anyone has any questions about that since we just went over it.
I would just add the advantage with the charter school, I think, isn't just the financial for the district, but I would bet the children get a better education when they're in person in the district. So I
Yeah,
think it's a win for the parents and a win for the district if they come back, in my opinion.
that's a good point. Anyone else? Okay, I can see what I did with my agenda, sorry. Okay, so that concludes my finance committee report. Policy with Peg.
Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. The policy committee met on May 17th at 7 p.m. The committee was asked to divert from continuing its review of the policies in the 200 section and review policy 818, contracted services, and policy 707, use of facilities. Policy 818, contracted services, was reviewed as an outgrowth from the most recent audit of the district. Language in the current 818 policy will need to be updated. Using PSBA's proposed policy language will be added, for example, to include that independent contractors shall obtain and submit new certifications every 60 months. The committee agreed to move policy 818 to the full board for a first read. Policy 707, use of facilities, is being revisited to clarify and understand enforcement of the policy. Dr. Farina explained that this policy is far-reaching and the last revision was in 2016. Mr. Kenwood addressed the concerns and issues that he has experienced since the start of his employment in the district 2 years ago. A lengthy discussion took place with administration, committee members, attending board members, and community members present at the meeting. Many thoughts and ideas were shared. The committee will continue to examine policy 707, the language of the policy, and review policies from other school districts in order to develop policy language that will be easier to understand and apply. The committee plans to take the necessary time to work through policy 707 as needed. And Dr. Farina and Mr. Summers, is there anything else that you would like to add regarding either policy?
No, thank you.
I would just say, as directed by the policy committee, on June 14th, we will be presenting the cases and the current use by those cases, as well as some recommendations and a table of the different cases provided for districts around us. So I'll be sharing that out with the board, as well as with the committee on June 14th.
Thank you. The next policy committee meeting is scheduled for June 14th. This concludes the policy committee report.
Thank you. We'll move on. We're going to have Keith do our Western Montgomery Career and Technology Center since Stephen's not here.
Okay, from the weekly update from the JOC last week, the Joint Operating Committee. Some of the highlights are the collision shop had done a fundraiser over the past few weeks by doing spray-on bed liners for trucks. They use that money to raise funds to attend the SEMA exposition. SEMA is the Specialty Equipment Marketing Association. Think nitrous, add-ons, boombox, well, not boomboxes anymore, but electronics, radio equipment, things like that. One of the questions that we brought up at our meeting last month was, what's the retention rate for a lot of the students going through JOC? This year, out of the graduating seniors, 4 years ago, 62 started. We have 47 graduating this year. So that's approximately 76% of the students are graduating. But if you look at the losses out of that program, 11 of them came back to the home sending district for one reason or another, and 4 of them left out of the school districts themselves. So considering that, that's a pretty good percentage. You know, some kids go to the center to learn, to explore, to see what their career path might be, and they decide that's not right for them, but the majority of them stay there and continue on and do quite well. We had 50 students that participated in co-ops this year. That's a great number. Hopefully it keeps growing each year as we go along. Early childhood education class down there, they run a nursery school program. They had nursery school graduation on May 20th for all the kids. They gave them little caps and gowns. And the senior recognition night for the graduating seniors will be next Wednesday, June 2nd. And that's held at one of the Spring Forward facilities to accommodate all the people. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the legislative liaison. Oh, I'm sorry, the MCIU with Judy. Checked it off and didn't say it.
Thank you. The MCIU Board of Directors met yesterday, May 26th, 2021. The meeting began with a celebration for 25 employees who have or will retire from the IU this year. These 25 employees represent over 500 years of service to the IU, and so we thank them and wish them well in their retirement. The board was also provided with a walkthrough of the IU's recently rolled out revised website. The new website's more user-friendly with easier navigation and provides better access to information about the services the IU provides to families and schools in Montgomery County. So if anyone's interested, you can check it out at mciu.org. The business office announced that they are actively looking for an additional facility, which is needed to meet the increasing need for programming and services offered to our students in the districts of the county. So I will keep you up to date on how that goes. And finally, the Office of Student Services announced that 2 new programs will begin serving students in the fall of 2021. One is a new intensive autistic support program, which was developed in response to requests by many of the member districts. Also this fall, the new school-based elementary level partial hospitalization program will open its door. This is a program that's been in the making for several years, and we're excited to see it finally get up and running. And our next meeting will be held on Wednesday, June 23rd. So that concludes the report for the IU. If anybody has any questions. No? Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. You are muted, Melanie. I don't know if you know that.
Thanks. You're right, it was. And we'll move on to legislative liaison report with Peg.
Thank you, Mrs. Cunningham. As mentioned earlier, all school districts are waiting anxiously for the state to release the budget. On Wednesday, May 26th, the House Education Committee approved Senate Bill 664. This bill would allow parents the option to have their child repeat a grade level during the 2021-2022 school year due to COVID-19. This would also allow parents the option to extend special education enrollment due to COVID-19, specifically allowing these students who may have reached 21 years of age on or after the issuance of the proclamation of disaster emergency to continue to be enrolled in school for the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year. Schools will be required to follow all state and federal special education laws for students opting for the additional year. During the hearing on Wednesday, members indicated that PIAA, Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association, governs eligibility for sports, and there will not be an expansion of age eligibility. Therefore, students who seek to repeat a year for sports purposes may not be age eligible to participate. It was also noted that this is another unfunded mandate for schools, but the right thing for families, especially those receiving special education services. Charter reform continues to be a hot topic. On May 19th, Governor Wolf held a press conference at Pottstown High School, call for support of charter reform legislation. State Representative Joe Cerisi discussed House Bill 272, his bipartisan legislation that incorporates the governor's reform plan. Representative Jesse Topper has circulated a charter reform co-sponsorship memo that incorporates House Bills 355, 356, and 357 from last session. This proposal seems to have garnered support by more majority members than the comprehensive package supported by the governor. Representative Topper's memo indicates that his legislation improves several provisions in the charter school law, including strengthening the ethical requirements for charter schools, regional charter schools, and cyber charter schools, reinstating the charter school reimbursement line item in the 2021-2022 state budget to offset the financial impact that school districts have felt with nearly 170,000 students now enrolled in public charter schools, and encouraging collaboration between school districts, charter schools, career and technical centers, intermediate units, and post-secondary institutions by removing structural barriers in the law that stifle the sharing of innovative practices, cost-saving initiatives, and professional development diversification strategies, just to name a few. On May 24th, the House unanimously passed House Bill 358. The bill allows charter schools, regional charter schools, cyber charter schools, and career and technical schools to offer dual enrollment programs to their students, as do school districts under current law. The bill clarifies that revenues received by a school district for dual enrollment purposes are not to be included in a school district's budget total expenditure per average daily membership for purposes of calculating the district's per student charter school payment. On May 25th, the House unanimously passed House Bill 1013. The bill requires the inclusion of career technical education certification on a student's high school transcript beginning in the 2021-2022 school year. On May 25th, the House Human Services Committee approved House Bill 409. The bill would establish a mental health care services clearinghouse to serve as a publicly accessible registry of mental health care resources available across the Commonwealth, and to assist school personnel in connecting families to community mental health resources. It also would allow school personnel to learn about and take advantage of existing programs and resources for their schools. Pursuant to Act 18 of 2019, all school entities are required by the start of the 2021-2022 school year to have established at least one threat assessment team for the assessment of an intervention with students whose behavior may indicate a threat to the safety of the student, other students, school employees, school facilities, the community, or others. The law also required the School Safety and Security Committee to research, develop, and provide free threat assessment guidelines, training, and information materials, as well as model procedures and guidelines for school entities. If any school board member would like more information about these and other legislative matters, please feel free to contact me. This concludes the legislative liaison report.
That was a mouthful. Thanks, Peg. Anyone have any questions about all that? I know Alan was at the governor's cyber charter reform. Do you want to say
Actually, I have
anything?
one question,
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Keith. Sorry.
and this is for Dr. Roche and Dr. Farina. If we had kids, have any families expressed interest in having their children repeat grades for the
Yeah.
past year or anything? And let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I am aware of at least one or two that have heard about this potential legislator and that have, you know, they have interest in what it is, whether it's at the younger grade or the older grade. I think the point that Mrs. Pennypacker clarified was part of the fear that I think when it first came out was about athletics, that there would be people that would say this would be a good, that was out there, at least discussion point. I know the superintendents had weighed in, and even the conversation with Senator Mensch that I was a part of about this bill, trying to get some clarification, and or is it simply just parent choice? It doesn't matter what the assessments are. It doesn't matter that they're at the top of their class. It doesn't matter. Is it simply just parent choice based upon whatever the parents feel, and that's that because of the pandemic. And again, until we see the final copy of that. But you know, I think there will be some people that have interest, and I think they're going to have to kind of weigh that option. Where their child is, if it's at a younger grade, if it's the kindergarten first or second was not what they had expected based upon that, or if there's a reason at an older grade. So there is interest, no question. I think some clarity on what that really means. And the unfunded mandate piece, and I'll defer to Dr. Farina if I'm misspeaking here, in terms of the students that were aging out, that option would be there for them as well. So that's something that is of concern. And I think the bigger concern of all this conversation is, what about the students that are in current cyber charter schools who really, if you look at what their education wasn't negatively, I don't want to say negatively, wasn't impacted the model too much from remaining at home or being involved in the pandemic, because that has been their model. So it should have been fairly seamless, but it seems to be, and the information that I'm reading is that they would also have that option as well. So you have a potential another year of charter school fees on top of that, when it did their model change or not change. My children don't go to a cyber charter school, so I don't know how different it was. But from the outside, it would seem to be fairly seamless, that their year was as normal as they had anticipated that year being.
Makes sense.
In terms of the pep rally, it was a wild, crazy event. No, it was very nice. It was a very nice event, and the speakers, Mr. Representative Cerisi and Governor Wolf, and a lot of the speakers that were there, including Dr. Gallagher from Souderton, Mr. Rodriguez from Pottstown, really talking about the reform and the need for that to happen, and hopefully getting some movement in that area. And it was repeated several times. This is not an anti-choice discussion. It's more of a reform of a 24-year-old law or framework that just needs to be revised based upon the information that's there. And that would really help, all the districts in terms of that funding formula, and actually paying for related or special ed services for the actual cost, as opposed to just a round number. So it was a lot of good discussion there. So hopefully we'll continue to see some movement in that area there. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions? Okay, we'll move on to the Upper Percumen Education Foundation. Mike Elliott.
Good evening. Thank you, Melanie. All right, so the Upper Perk Education Foundation is giving out signs to our seniors, one version of which can be seen behind Dr. Roche. Dr. Roche, if you could say something and point behind you. All right. And our annual meeting is coming up, I believe, in July. So that's what I have. Any questions? All right, hearing none, I conclude my report.
Thanks, Mike. And we'll move on to Regional Planning Commission, Dr. Drake.
Well, we had a meeting yesterday, which was a very interesting meeting with the storms. We didn't have a quorum for about the first 15 minutes of the meeting. And then various people flashed on and flashed off, depending on who was having a power failure. So they didn't cover all the agenda items. They were going to get into the comprehensive plan and a big review, but they didn't. That'll be in next month's meeting, which is, I believe, mid-June. So we didn't get into that, but a couple of the highlights that were shared is there are some new construction projects that are being floated that would be interesting. I don't think they're at an approval level yet, but they're basically starting their township evaluation processes. There's a very large warehouse, 106,000 square foot warehouse that's being proposed somewhere on 663 near Northgate entrance. That I think is in an early stage, and it's not clear as to what kind of facility that'll be, just that it's a large warehouse with probably 25 bays for trucks to park. There was some speculation, is it Amazon, but nobody really knows. That's one thing. There was another talk about a 44-acre tract. They said it was on Gravel Pike east of Red Hill, that there's potentially going to be a cluster of 84 lots that might be homes. Again, it's in the very early stages, so they're just starting to have some discussions, but it's interesting to see. They also talked about 55 acres across from Walmart. They're looking at its age targeted residential, and there was some discussion about, is it age target or age restricted? But I guess it's basically going to be earmarked as a retirement community. So there's a lot of construction like that going on in the area. Also, Green Lane was approved for a Montco 2040 grant for sidewalks downtown that will go directly into the Percumen Trail. They got $199,000 grant from the Montco 2040 program, and they'll match it $40,000. So then they'll have some new sidewalks in Green Lane. So it was good that we held the meeting. It was very interesting. It's also an interesting committee. When I do find out when the next meeting is, which I think it's going to be around the June 15th time, I'll let everybody know, but I would recommend attending it. You learn a lot. So any questions?
Yeah, Carrie, I got
Go ahead, Mike. I was
Sorry.
just going to make an observation.
they're going to put sidewalk down to the perk trail. Is that what you
That's
said?
what they said. Yes. They said they got a sidewalk grant and it's going to connect into the trail.
I think that's pretty exciting. Awesome. Thanks.
Yes.
I
Okay.
just wondered if anybody knows what's going in front of Pizza Como yet, across from the new
I
McDonald's.
asked, and I'm surprised that the Regional Planning Commission doesn't know what's going there. But they don't know what's going there.
Darn.
So
Someday we'll know.
when I find out on the next meeting, if whenever comes up, I'll be sure to let everybody know.
Thanks.
Okay. If there's no further questions, then that'll conclude my report.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. We'll move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments tonight?
No hands.
Okay. We'll move on to board comments. Anyone have a comment? Mike, I see you're waving.
Yes, I do. So first off, congratulations again to Mrs. Newman on her retiring, and anybody else that might be retiring. Thank you for all your years of service here in the district. Want to encourage everybody, of course, to fill out that parent declaration that comes out at the end of this month. It's going to be super important. And as Dr. Roach said, it'd be really great to have as many kids back as we could, because it's always nice to be back together with the family. And I have one other thing I want to mention. I was unable to make the policy committee meeting, and I didn't get to say it when we were doing the roundups there. But I would just strongly encourage our policy committee members, our administrators, and also my fellow board members to carefully consider and weigh any changes and the changes that are proposed to policy 707. Now, 707, for those of you that may or may not know, that's the one that sets the guidelines for who can be in the gyms, who can be on the fields, who can use these facilities. Now, a lot of times these are our youth programs, whether it's wrestling or basketball or cheerleading or soccer or baseball, whatever. That's that's who's really using our gyms for the most part in our facilities. So I would just strongly encourage us as we, obviously safety comes first. We want to, obviously no questions about that, but we want to make sure that any changes that we do propose don't put any of our clubs or youth organizations in a position where they won't be able to financially go forward. And obviously I understand, district's got to do what it's got to do, but I'm just telling you from where I'm coming from as somebody who's been a long time coach and volunteer in multiple youth programs in our area. I think it's imperative that we be able to offer these programs to our kids as a subset of kind of what the district does. So when we start talking about, charging these groups, if we're going to charge them, how much we're going to charge them, we're going to raise fees, this or that. I would just caution us to pump the brakes, take our time and make sure what we're doing, what are the real ramifications and implications of any said changes. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else? If not, I think our 10th board member would like to say something.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Ray.
I just want to mention, maybe we should invite those who actually use our facilities to attend the next board meeting or policy meeting 707 to discuss 707.
Makes sense.
We've already discussed doing that, and that is part of the process, but not yet.
Okay.
Okay, 10th board member.
Thank you. I want to know if Dr. Farina could promote Dan Geriso into the room real quick, just so we can congratulate him. If we were in an in-person meeting, which we're planning on getting back in August, we would obviously do that and at least give him a round of applause and acknowledge him for the accomplishment of and new promotion. We're happy and thrilled to have him on board.
I'm doing it.
Okay. Do you think he knows yet?
Promoting, well, quicker, maybe not. It took me a long time to find him.
Yeah. Just trying to recreate if we were in an actual in-person meeting, there would at least be an acknowledgement and a little bit of a.
Dan, are you there? I thought
Come on, Dan. Come on down.
I am here. Sorry about that. I'm here. You guys hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Okay.
We're giving you a round of applause.
Sorry, I'm outside, and that's my problem. So
It's all good.
No,
You're here and you're attending. We just wanted to congratulate you and welcome you to your new position and all the. As Mike Elliott said to me, you got to like the people you work with in these jobs because you're going to spend a lot of time together, and that is true in terms of meetings and evenings and mornings and weekends and all that fun stuff. So, welcome aboard.
absolutely, and I appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to thank the board, thank everybody who went through the interview process and spent a lot of time discussing everything. And truthfully, I'd like to thank Sandy as far as being a mentor and really spending time with me over the past 4.5 years to really train me and get me ready for the next step. And in the words of another business manager in the area, I've really learned from one of the great ones. So I'd like to thank Sandy and thank everyone for the time. And I'm looking forward to really digging in and continuing to contribute to the district. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Congratulations, Dan. You deserve it.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Sandy said she's going to change the sheets on the daybed in her office before she goes. Just saying.
Okay. Well, I would appreciate that. So thanks, Sandy.
Sandy, a nice thread count for him too, right?
Yeah.
Nice thread count.
Yep.
I'll try, Mike.
Heated blanket or something. Yeah.
And not to belabor this, but this is also Sandy's last workshop. It's not her last board meeting, but it's her last workshop. So I know she's probably upset when we changed to no workshop in June, but we have the one meeting. So just that acknowledgement and all the time, and we're going to continue to celebrate you, Sandy, all along the way here.
Yep.
Well into July, as you know, your date's not until July, and then probably a little bit after there as well. So thank you so much for everything that you have done, and will continue to honor. And I'm thankful that you were here and stayed to you. Before I was hired, I was told by by Melanie, Stephen, and Mike. You're gonna have to hire a business manager in less than a year. Well, thank goodness we was here for 2.
Got to.
So yeah, so thank you so much. And congratulations to you as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Round of applause.
Go write that book.
I'll try. I'll need your help.
Yes. All right. Well, Dan, we'll let you get back to doing what you're doing, and thank you again. And I think do we have any more board comments? I don't think we do. And if we don't, I would.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Well, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And I guess we'll be seeing you at finance.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Yep.
Good night, everybody. Y'all take
Good
care.
night. See ya.